that I'm a mother, Sha. Do you understand? So that difficulty in adjusting to the new normal can maybe also inform postpartum depression. I'm glad that we actually have a guest on the show to actually discuss this.
All right, so this is from Jessica. Jessica said, I'd carried my 3-week-old baby and I slept off. I woke up 1 hour later screaming that the baby had been taken. I searched the entire house looking for the baby. I broke down and started crying, only for my frantic husband to check the cot beside me and realize I'd put her there. Ha. Oh. Wow. All right, this one is from Ashabi. Ashabi from Lagos says, I just have to comment on this because it's really true. So one day, I carried my baby from his cot and put him on the rug while he was crying. It's important to note that I had just woken up then, though, and I didn't know it's my baby that was crying. I just put him on the floor and went to sleep on the bed. My mom was like, Ashabi, sure, we're okay. No, I'm not okay, Okomi.
I'm not okay. Let's call it spoon a spoon.
I'm sure the man will be so confused.
Like, you're on the bed, the child is on the floor.
So I must say something. I feel like in this society that we're in, people are not very gracious to pregnant women or women that have given birth.
How so?
Or people that are expecting children. So, I mean, let me use let's take it by stage by stage. So people always have a lot to say when you're looking for a child. They would advise you to do different things, especially when they don't even know the things that you're struggling with. They just tell you things and then utter different things, especially your family members. That's one. Secondly, when you're pregnant, people would be very harsh towards you. Don't walk in the sun. Don't do this. Don't eat this. Don't do that. Yes, they care for you, but then they forget that you are going through a lot at that moment. So there's so many things that they do to you. That's two. Now, 3, when you finally give birth, especially when you are breastfeeding and you're finding it difficult to probably lactate or your baby isn't latching properly and all of that, people are not very kind. They would always find things to say that you are the one that gave birth to the child. You are the one that will teach the child how to do this. I have actually seen one that happened right before my eyes and I was not very happy. I had to call the mom out that I am not happy that you're speaking to this lady this way because she's struggling. It's not her fault that she's not lactating at the moment. It's not her fault that she's, not, her baby isn't latching right. She's trying and the mother was just crying and crying and crying. And then I did it too. And then people do this comparison thing, especially if they're probably giving birth to 100 children.
I don't have 2 heads.
I don't, thank you. Yeah. You know this, I don't have 2 heads. I gave birth to you, and all of that. You're the one that gave birth to the child. The child shouldn't dictate for you and all. I just think that we should be kinder to women that just give birth. They are going through a lot. And if your parents are traditional, just maybe you should find ways to probably educate them because it's going to be very difficult. If you have a very traditional parents that they don't believe in a lot of modern sciences and so many things that people do now, they would want to advise you to use different things that the doctor didn't ask you to use. And that may be a lot of conflict, especially if they're living with you and they're there to take care of the child for you. I mean, they can go on to say that while I gave birth to you, I had to use camwood and chalk powder and something to rub your head. And probably the doctor said this child should just use baby oil and you want to do that and then there is a lot of conflict and that may also lead to depression.
And the conversation this morning has also moved again. So Ombolade is still here and I have our guest in the studio this morning. Ombolade.
All right, so our guest this morning is a friend of the family. In fact, he has always been here with us on the show several times. His name is Charles Onwachukwu, and Charles has 6 years of experience in the non-profit sector. He has earned a Bachelor's of Medicine and Surgery from Niger Delta University and a Certificate of Leadership from Impact Leaders Academy. He is the founder of Health Leads Initiative, a non-profit organization with a focus to offer nutritional rehabilitation to malnourished children in underserved communities. Charles, thank you for always honoring our invitation on Tea or Coffee.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. All right, so our conversation this morning is on postpartum depression. But before we actually move into that, we need to talk about that question that we asked people before we went on a break, and that is it normal to forget that you have a baby?
Well, the word normal, I'll say it's something that happens, but is it normal? Is it possible? I wouldn't say it's normal, actually, because, I mean, it's not a good thing for you to forget that you have a baby.
Yes.
But it's something that happens, and it's something that, you could say that you're causing a couple of people. It does happen, but I wouldn't really say it's normal.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it's not something that should be, totally fine. Not something that happens, and then you say, I'm okay with this. And it is normal, but it's something that does happen.
So normal is not the right word.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But then why does it happen? Why I mean, I've realized that Ade is not the only guy that doesn't understand that it happens to women. And in fact, some women don't even understand that it happens to some women. Yeah. So, I mean, why does it happen? Why do people forget that they have a child?
I think it's sort of a mystery. I mean, like, it's just some things that happen with new environment, like new circumstances, like when you're in a new space, something you're not used to, something different is happening. It's just like you moving into a new apartment or being in a new space. There's a couple of things that you are used to in your former place that you're not used to. So at some point you're still trying to like adapt to the new happenings at the time. Yeah. So
we see people throw around the world the word postpartum depression. Yeah. They say, oh, I forgot my baby yesterday. Oh, it must be postpartum depression. We need to clear the air about what postpartum depression really is.
Yeah.
So would you like to do us that?
So I'll break it into postpartum and depression. So I'll start with depression. Depression is a mental health condition, and in which you persistently have a depressed mood.
Okay.
And then you have the lack of interest in, the normal activities, and you have this low energy.
Okay.
So you're sort of uninterested in a couple of things. And then postpartum just, basically means after birth. So partum means birth. So postpartum depression simply means depression after birth. So the symptoms of depression, they are, basically the same thing. So, but this one is just related to birth, meaning that is as a result of, some activities or some circumstances around childbirth. I believe in the course of this conversation, we're going to go into all of that. Okay. So basically, depression can be caused by a lot of things, but postpartum depression is as a result of that childbirth. Yes.
What causes postpartum depression, and how do you recognize that someone has postpartum depression?
All right. So we wouldn't say cause. I will use the word risk factors.
All right.
So the things that would likely
predispose you to.
Yeah, to postpartum depression. First of all, I'm going to be saying a couple of things from the books, and then also some other things that I've encountered, while working from experience, and so the things that I saw practically in real life. So risk factors, let's say if you've had a previous history of depression, that one is unrelated to pregnancy. So you have to check it, so when you get pregnant, you have to start looking out for signs and symptoms. Also, we'll get to that. So also, if you also had the family history of a mental health condition, of maybe mood disorders and the rest, so it's also a risk factor. Other times, if there's an emotional condition at home, or maybe there's like a problem in the marriage, family issues, it could also be a risk factor.
Okay.
And then if you're a potential single mother, I'm sure you understand what I mean by that. Sometimes people get pregnant and the person who is responsible for the pregnancy is not taking responsibility at the time. It's not being supportive. So it could be a risk factor to postpartum depression. I mean, you can understand why, because she's going to be faced with a lot of things, dealing. The best time to support a woman is when she's pregnant, actually. So if you don't get a lot of that support, you're most likely to, go into depression. And then most of the times, women who are pregnant for the first time, so it's just like we said about, adapting to new happenings, so they're not used to being pregnant. They're not used to having a baby. It's just something new for them. At the time, they are novice in a lot of things, so which is why they always have to have, their mother or their mother-in-law around. Yeah. So, and then age. So younger people might be at a higher risk of facing postpartum depression.
Interesting. So, you mentioned something about people having the history of depression. So are you telling me that if you've had depression before you became pregnant, you're susceptible to actually have postpartum depression?
Yeah, sure. Generally, in medicine, once you've had a condition before, the chance of you having it again increases.
Interesting.
It's a standard rule. So if you've had a condition before, if you had, let's say you had a 20% chance of having a particular condition.
All right.
So once you have it for the first time, that chance might increase to 25% or 30%. So imagine you had depression before for some reason, and then, you're now, so once the person gets pregnant, if you remember that history, you try to, take some of the precautions measures, to see how you can be all right.
If you've not had depression before, and you put to bed, and then because of that, or for some reason, you develop PPD, that's postpartum depression.
Yes.
Is there a possibility that if you don't have depression before, you didn't have postpartum depression, is there a possibility that much later in life, in your later years as a woman, you are exposed or you are at risk of developing depression on its own?
Yeah. Now, we say biopsychosocial causes. Bio is in terms of like your health. It could be a disease condition that causes depression. Psychology is, based on what's going on. And then social could also be like issues you have around your families or within your environment. So most times, major life events could cause you depression. So the fact that you've not had depression before, you've not had postpartum depression, later in life, if something happens suddenly, maybe the loss of a loved one, or maybe something very, very significant happens to you, you lose your job, or you're just coming back from work and you find out your house just got burned down, you understand? And that you're susceptible to depression.
So it has no link whatsoever to giving birth as a woman?
At the time?
It has, at the time.
At the time, no, it has no link. So like the postpartum depression is, you can extend, because the postpartum period is usually 42 days, that's 6 weeks after birth. But for postpartum depression, you can extend the time to 12 months after birth. Okay. Yeah, so it can occur, it is most likely felt within that first 6 weeks after birth. But if you give a window period of 12 months, you can say that it was the childbirth that could have led to this, based on some other signs that you factors. See, because at the end of the day, you find how she relates with the baby, how she takes care of the baby, or how she sometimes, unintentionally abandoned the baby. You understand? So you could link it to postpartum depression within that time frame.
So this postpartum depression, how common is it? Because, having these conversations, you'd realize that a lot of people don't even know about it. And traditionally, people don't even think it is possible that, what are you talking about? It's impossible for you not to care for your baby. It's impossible for you not to want to have your baby around you. So how common is it amongst women?
Yeah. For us to get the statistics, it means like we should have made the diagnosis and then, come up with some numbers. But for some reason around here, we might not be able to have the exact numbers, but in the Western world, there's a range between 7 to 16 to 17% of every woman that gives birth will come up with postpartum depression.
Is there any link between postpartum depression and, I don't know if it's called postpartum psychosis? Okay. This thing where a certain woman can just, have a psychological breakdown.
These are psychosis, depression. These are all mental health, issues. So it's like a spectrum. So there's a balance, there's a middle, okay? And then when they talk about moods and the mental health illnesses, so you have people tilting to the left, the depressive part, and then other people tilting to the right, the psychotic part, as the case may be. Okay. You understand? So in mental health issues, your condition is most likely going to fall either within the left region or within the right region. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. So they're all mental health issues associated with childbirth, but their signs and symptoms are quite, with few differences here and there.
Yeah.
So in depression, you might have the loss of interest, you have the low energy, you feel depressed. The psychotic part, you might become aggressive. You might even toss your baby. Like, take this baby away from me. So it's just, there are both mental health issues associated with childbirth, but, with some slight differences in terms of science. And
Before we move on from that, there was the case of a woman who went blind after giving birth. She got her sight back in, I think, a couple of weeks. But when I heard the story, and this is not a third-party story, I heard directly, I felt, okay, that's a new one. And I'll never forget that story. So I just wanted to, this is not me downplaying what she went through, but I just wanted to know if there is any medical explanation for that. She couldn't see after...
It was shortly after she gave birth?
Shortly after she gave birth, right there at the hospital.
Well, thing is, a couple of things could have explained that. So I don't know if they were able to come up with why she had that issue at the time, or maybe she had the if she had like
predisposition to
had like some eyesight issues before birth or something.
She didn't have eyesight issues. And her sight is good now, nothing wrong. But in that moment, when she put to bed, and for the next couple of weeks, she could not see anything.
At that time, maybe she probably wasn't communicating properly.
Okay.
Or maybe we were not able to ascertain what she saw at the time, or probably, the state at which she was at the time. And then she just couldn't handle, or she couldn't process what she was feeling at the time. So that's probably what happened.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, so how do you help an expecting mother to prevent herself from postpartum depression? I mean, you've already mentioned the risk factors, but I mean, there's some people that don't have the risk factors, never been depressed, never had issues of mental health, never had a family.
Not too young.
They're not too young. They're about the right age to have a family and all of that. But somehow they have found themselves in that particular bracket, or they are already worried that they may find themselves in that particular bracket. What can they do?
Yeah, even people who already have depression, the form of treatment you can get is medical therapy in terms of medications, and then also psychotherapy, counseling and, supportive psychological support.
Yeah.
So, like I said earlier on, the best time to support a woman is when she's pregnant. So there are little things that, you can do at the time that will ease the stress, that she doesn't feel like she's alone by herself. And, a huge of this responsibility lies on her partner.
Okay.
I mean, because pregnancy sometimes will say it's a death sentence. I didn't say this to scare anyone. I don't want you to misunderstand me. But once a woman is pregnant, there's 101 things that could go wrong just for being pregnant. So a lot of psychological and emotional support is needed at that time. I mean, if you're the husband and you can afford to take her to take her yourself to antenatal care, that's a whole lot. If she's trying to shop online to buy things for the baby, you could be there with her, make choices with her. Talk about it, talk about the baby, if she needs to do exercise and you join her in walking around the estate or something like that, make her food sometimes, So I feel that a lot of psychological support is needed at that time. And then if there's any pre-existing condition at the home, maybe there's like a quarrel, there's a dispute between she and a family member or something, that's not the time to magnify that issue. I mean, if it needs you letting go of your relatives who's there at the time, because being pregnant at the time, she might be irritated by a lot of things. There are a lot of mood changes that are associated with hormones. So some of these mood behaviors are as a result of hormonal changes in the women. Women, their hormones are always, here, there at the time. So most of the things they do and they react to is as a result of this hormone, and you won't 100% blame them at the time.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So a lot of those things will happen when she's pregnant. So if there's any issues at home and all of that, that's not the time to magnify it. So what I would say is emotional, psychological support, 100%.
That's very cool.
Oh, cool.
I mean, it's a lot to take in that.
Seriously.
Take it or leave it. There's a high possibility that these things can happen to you, and you need that support. And it makes me sympathize or empathize with women that did this on their own, with no support. With no support, no backup whatsoever.
Let's talk about medications. Can postpartum depression be treated medically, and it in a way that it won't affect the baby, because whatever a mother ingests, the baby also ingests.
Through breastfeeding.
So can we talk about the medications, and is there a way that maybe a woman can, vitamin supplements that you take during pregnancy, is there a way that can be taken to avoid postpartum depression? So 2 questions in one.
Those things that she takes, those medications she takes during the pregnancy, they're just like supportive, to make sure the pregnancy is safe. You know, there's enough blood, enough vitamins, and all of that. Those are just for the well-being of the pregnancy. But talking about the medication for depression, there are a class of drugs called antidepressants that she can take. So, but that diagnosis has to be established first of all before she starts the medication, and then she always have to discuss with her doctor. There are a lot of them, so you have to weigh the ones that, she can take that'll be safe for her.
A lot of Nigerians do not, let me just say that it's only of recent, that Nigerians started taking special interest in mental health. So you see someone who says, oh, I think I'm depressed, and they say, it's because you don't have money, Jerry. Now, how do we tie the loose ends between, because some women for me now, hearing postpartum depression, what I'm thinking about is, the right doctor to see should be a psychologist. Can the person still see a gynecologist regardless?
Okay, it's like a team management.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's something we call multidisciplinary approach. So if you have a patient that has more than one condition, so you work as a team, you communicate with each other. So for depression, it's something that a psychiatrist does. That's not the job of the gynecologist. So why the gynecologist is, doing his or her own part of the job, the psychiatrist. Okay. But they always have to be a communication. The psychiatrist, the one we refer is like, okay, this was a patient who had the baby delivered, so she came with some all
the medical history.
Yeah, so I suspect that she might be having a depression. Please kindly review. And the psychiatrist does his or her own review. I'm like, okay, thank you for sending your patient. I've reviewed that. Okay, these are my recommendations. I'll see her in so weeks. Everybody is in sync, and we're working together.
Okay.
Oh, thank you so much,
This has been
Charles.
very enlightening. Thank you so much, Charles, for joining us this morning to have a conversation on postpartum depression. I hope you've learned 1 or 2 things from this conversation this morning. Please, if you notice that you are going through a lot at the moment, especially before pregnancy or even after you've had your baby, would need that you see a professional so that they can properly diagnose you and let you know what you should do. Please do not self-medicate. That's one thing that we preach every day on the show. It's so important.